Can anyone else really come to terms with the fact that this is episode 8 of 10? And as of recording, we have not had anything else confirmed. So there's a little bit of a bittersweet feeling to this one, but let's jump straight into it. As usual, thank you so much to all of you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. You've helped this channel grow so much. It is so appreciated, okay? Now, shall we surrender? This week we lead directly on from last week's big cliffhanger ending. Vadic has taken control of the Titan A and she's about to reveal what's going on with Jack. Anyway, so we're going to cut straight to some other characters this week. And the very first up that I am giving is to my friend Olivia, or as you might know her, Ensign Riggs. She is running through the corridors of the Titan being pursued by some rather nasty changelings, and, you know, some other people are not very lucky. And Sean, are you just giving ups to people you know? You're absolutely damn right. That is exactly what I will do. Paulie, who is of course the most incredible bar patron / smushed by the vengeance person ever turns up in Star Trek again, you know he's getting an up. I mean, we know Kelvin universe of Paul came to a rather abrupt end, but then what about Prime universe Paul? Did he go on to become one of the greatest minds in Starfleet history? And then of course there's Mirror Universe Paul. That's a whole different story. Also, as you see as the episode goes on, Ensign Riggs is definitely knocked out at one point on the ground. But I don't see no flatline. As far as I'm concerned, we're still getting that Riggs and Shaw spin-off. It's happening. Aboard the Shrike, we have Deanna Troi. Yes, we get lots of Marina Sirtis in this episode. I know there's been all sorts of people giving out about the lack of Marina Sirtis in this season, considering this is a big massive TNG reunion. I certainly missed her the first half of the season, but she is in so much of this episode that I think it more than makes up for it. That scene between Troi and Riker in the cell on the Shrike, I just love the play between them all. In fact, I'm just giving a wee bit of a quick up to the gag around Imzadi. It's just lovely seeing these two people who have known each other for so long bouncing off each other so comfortably. That joke about, you know, Riker's beard going from brown to grey to blood red, and still they kind of managed to grin through it. We see, we were all ready to go because, you know, there's a healthy dose of pessimism and Trek culture, because why not? We were all ready to go with it down for if they had forgotten that they set up the rules to say that a Betazoid can't read a changeling. We needn't have worried. They talk about it here. And actually, what they do is, it's an addition to the lore. It doesn't take anything away from what we already know about changelings. In fact, it only tells us more. That's an up from me. I like this entire scene. I love their exchange. When she says, you know, the changeling turned up, what do we know about him? Bad at pizza, good in bed. And as Riker says, just like me then. Again, these are two people deeply comfortable with each other. And it seriously works. Aboard the bridge of the Titan, we have a quick exchange between Seven of Nine and Captain Shaw. I love this. Now what this does is it shows us Shaw is willing to self-sacrifice. He is haunted still by the memories of Wolf 359. So he knows what it is to be responsible for the lives of others. First thing he says to Seven is, you should have blown the turbo lift. And okay, yes, yeah, hindsight's 2020, but bear with me. Yes, that would have killed Shaw and presumably killed Vadic and her hench person. Now, there's still all the ones that are in the observation lounge, so really, obviously, the idea was take out Vadic. So he says, you should have blown the turbo lift. And we know that's coming from, let's save as many people as possible. However, Seven says, we don't trade lives. She is all about, as Chris pointed out when we were going through the script for this episode, she's all about the family. That's what this is about for her. She is building her family, she is safeguarding her family. And yes, that even includes the dipshit from Chicago. So you can see their two opposing views on this. Both have a degree of validity. I won't lie, I mean, yeah, I see where Shaw's coming from, but I absolutely see where Seven's coming from. But what really tips it for me is when Shaw goes, Commander Hansen, and she corrects him. 7 of 9. Up. this shows not only has she had the confidence to call her captain out, but also we've moved a little bit beyond rigid captain to commander relationship here. They've moved into a more deeper understanding of each other. I really like this. And again, it's not massively telegraphed. There's no neon lights. It's just simple and it works. The ancient timepiece is ticking down, and of course, Vadic is calling out for Jack to come to the bridge. Jack, meanwhile, has explained to Crusher and Picard about what he can do in terms of he can take over people. We saw him do this with Sidney LaForge last week. He does a quick trial run here. He goes through the doors of sickbay into a security officer and is unable to see through their eyes, which is when we get our shot of Ensign Riggs having a little chill out on the ground. She's asleep. Leave me alone, don't at me. Then this person is killed. Jack wakes up, but Jack is showing that he is getting a little bit more control over this. He offers to try and create a distraction, in which case Picard says there is a rule where high-ranking officers are given a codex to take over a ship. I'm going to pause that there because I'm not sure how I feel about that. So this is a bit like the prefix code. If we go back to Wrath of Khan, for example, prefix code allowed Spock and Kirk to take over the Reliant, at least lower its shields. Okay, so yes, you would imagine that once that is used, you might refine it. Sure, okay, high-ranking officers. If we didn't have such a history of admirals through all of Star Trek, I think I would have less of a hesitation about this. This just seems like you're asking for trouble. All right, yeah, we trust Picard, but could any telepath get that out of him? I'm not sure I love the idea of there being a codex for a high-ranking officer. I'm not going to go so far as to down it, but I don't love it. I'm not going to lie. I do, however, like that it sets up the scene where we have Jack goes into Miro's mind, starts to control Miro's hand. Vadic seems to know about the codex, although changelings have infiltrated all of Starfleet. That, I have no problem with that. And this leads Vadic to be like, maybe I should kill someone. So we get a scene of Miro dropping to the ground and Esmar as well. And it's pretty harrowing. Vadic is not here to take prisoners. I mean, Jean-Luc is absolutely convinced that as soon as she's done, she's going to destroy the Titan. And quite frankly, I agree with him. She puts a gun to Miro's head and says, "Who will miss you?" He says, "My son." "Give up Jack." And he says, "No, we won't, because I'm Starfleet." Considering she's just got out of the Starfleet prison camp, it's probably not the, well, hey, I'm Starfleet that he seems to think it is. Then she puts the phaser to Esmar's head. And Esmar, I think quite understandably, is a little bit upset. Because it looks like Esmar's a goner. I have to say, they are giving it sucks in terms of a performance. And then Vadic turns the phaser on Taveen. Down. Oh, not Taveen. No, I mean, I suppose you could say the scene does its job in that I feel very bad about what happened. I am not happy Taveen gets killed. One of the best things about this season is how much time we've been getting with the bridge crew. I mean, we know Esmar, we know Taveen, we know Miro, and of course we know Sidney. To lose any of them doesn't feel good. Perhaps you can blame personal, Sean, that I just did it have to be Taveen? I just want to make a quick point on the downs in general. I'm giving it down to the fact that we've lost Taveen. I'm not saying the episode's bad. I'm not saying anything like that. We don't need to take the downs quite as seriously as sometimes we do. Remember, we're having a bit of fun here as we go through the episode as well. I just wanted to make that point. Don't worry, if this was your favorite part of the episode, there's something wrong with you if you enjoyed seeing Taveen get vaporized. But if it was your favorite part, that's great. That's cool. That's fun. And if it wasn't, then you're like me. It wasn't my favorite bit. I didn't want to see Taveen go. Tiny little plug. If you tune in to the Clone Star pod next week, you will be able to see my interview with Stephanie Tchaikovsky about how she feels about this. So look forward to that, okay? We'll post links as soon as it goes live. But yeah, thank you very much. Head on over to Clone Star pod and make sure you subscribe. Now, back to the episode. Aboard the Shrike, we get a scene that we're conflicted about here, right? It's a great scene in terms of an exchange between Riker and Troy. Okay, it's good. I really like seeing Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes are great in this scene. But this scene, they rip into the episode Nepenthe, which was easily my favourite episode of the first season. And it was arguably a very necessary episode of the first season. The way they do it, so what I mean by that, they're very obviously, we don't like the planet Nepenthe, we don't want to be there. There's a lot of playful banter. It's just kind of, it just feels like everyone's like, ugh, earlier Star Trek Picard, let's go back. Yeah, I don't know, anyway. Yeah, it kind of felt a bit like, oh, okay, we're just going to take time out of our day and talk about what a piece of crap Nepenthe was. But the fact that they do it so well is definitely not down, because the two of them are so good in it. In fact, when they have this moment of understanding, this follows a very important plot reveal, which is that when Thad Riker dies, Deanna, in her attempt to help Will, effectively dulled his feelings around Thad. Now, as a betazoid, she was able to, or a half betazoid, she was able to do that. There is resentment there because Riker, as he says, needed to feel that pain. He needed to grieve. If he couldn't grieve, he couldn't move on. Her attempts to help inadvertently locked him in that feeling of helplessness. Now, of course, we had a lot of chats then about how does this tie up with the fact that in Nepenthe, they seem to be happy families, they're making pizza in the woods, Kestra seems to be a very well-adjusted child, and to be honest, the conclusion we came to is that it doesn't track. Because, you know, obviously, at the time, this aspect of the character really hadn't been written. I can forgive it, because this scene is fantastic. You know, and the two of them play it very well. Obviously, Troi, in her attempts to protect the people around her, completely obliterates the, you know, psychologist version of the Hippocratic Oath, which is probably the Hippocratic Oath now that I think about it. I think we can understand, if not condone, her actions. And then how awful it must have been for her, because she felt not only her own grief, but everyone else's as well. The fact that they are still together all these years later, and as I said, that Kestra is so well adjusted, it is a testament to just how endgame Riker and Troi really were. We knew this pretty much since Encounter at Farpoint, and although there was some dalliances along the way, which I'll come to in one moment, they've always been meant for each other, and it is a very sad fact that losing a child often drives couples apart. The fact that they're still together, even after Troi's actions and Riker's distance, in a tragic way, it's a sweet comment on their relationship. They then hear some noises that mean their captors are coming back, and yes, the Changeling Guard appears directly outside their force field before having a Kurleth explode through its chest. You might be wondering, Sean, are you ever going to give any ups for these people? Up for Troi, up for Riker, up for Worf. I love this reunion. Obviously, Riker and Troi have been brilliant for the whole episode, so you're like, come on, you could have given them an up earlier. And yes, I could have. I'm an agent of chaos. But having them here, the three of them, it's brilliant. And of course, the fun scene. You know, one's personal space is a right. And then Deanna, like the waves of time, I have counted the days until I see you again. I mean, Michael Dorn is hilarious. He's just so good. Troy's like, that's so sweet. And Riker goes, inappropriate. It's, you know, is this another form of torture? They're so good together. It's such a great scene. It's just great seeing them again. I'm just very happy. Back aboard the Titan, we have the problem. Vadic is still in control. There is a deadline. We need a way of taking back control of the ship. I mean, they're telegraphing it pretty loud. They need data. Picard, Crusher, Sydney, and Jack head toward the lab where Geordi and Alandra and Gollum are. They burst in, and the first thing Geordi says, he pulls a phaser and says, 6 years ago at my anniversary on Rigel, what did you bring? And Picard answers with a bottle of Chateau Picard Bordeaux that you said was too dry because your tastes are pedestrian at best. The exchange, I love it. Didn't last week, didn't Crusher perfect the changeling detector? Like, she could have just gone, yeah, it's Geordi. Yeah, that's Alandra. For me, I think we will sacrifice that for a moment because this exchange, I would not remove this exchange at all. I love that. One, I am downing loudly on the Shrike, you have Worf, Riker, and Troy walk around a corner, and there's Raffi, and Raffi says, "Don't worry, it's me." And Worf says, "Cool." And I'm like, that's not how changeling detection works. You've made such a point out of, we can't trust our friends. That was a massive down. I was like, all right, grand, yeah. So as far as we know, Raffi's a changeling for the rest of the season. We have seen no proof whatsoever that this is Raffi. Her fighting other changelings later in the episode does not mean that she's not a changeling. What? Anyway, yeah, so that was a down. Of course, this leads into the big scene of the episode. They need to get Data back online. To do that, Data needs to effectively face off with Lore. They are sharing the same body, there's a partition holding them apart. Geordi's got to take that partition down, and then Data's got to fight Lore. And what we get is phenomenal. Brent Spiner, massive up there, plays both Data and Lore in the same scene together. Sometimes I think it's easy to sort of write off just how good Brent Spiner is in these roles, because, you know, we see him do this, we see him do that, you know, and then you see him do them together, and you're like, oh, these are all different characters. It's incredibly impressive. And we cycle through Data's memories. I'm going to save them for the cetacean observations, so make sure you stick around because I've got quite a few to go through. The emotion that builds in this scene, I mean, we are, you know, the embodiment of evil, and, you know, Data is effectively the embodiment of good facing off, and you really don't feel that confidence that Data's going to win. You know, part of you is like, well, it's not going to kill Data again. You know, it's bordering on trendy at this point. No, like, you feel like there is stakes here. You know, we keep cutting back to the room just enough to show the worry on Crusher, Picard, and Geordi's faces. Even at one point, it seems as though Data's lost the fight. Lore has taken everything of him, which of course is the intention. Data beat Lore by never raising a finger. I got really choked up with this scene. And not just because I'm a Trekkie, right? I mean, this is 30 years of, wow, like seeing these two characters again. Like, if we'd never seen Lore, if Descent was the last time we ever saw Lore, then I wouldn't necessarily hate that. You know, I thought it was a decent ending. But we get closure here that I never thought we were going to get. Seeing them embrace at the end, I really don't think it's much of a surprise that Brent Spiner is my Latinum Up of the Week. Back outside, after Data has taken control of the Titan again, with a lovely little quip about being a positronic pissed off AI, and Vadic doesn't look too happy about that. At this stage, Jack has gone up to the bridge to create a diversion. He's gone very Star Wars on it. Again, cetacean ops. And at this point, it's just Jack and Seven, Vadic, and a few henchmen on the bridge. I just, once more, Amanda Plummer. Genuinely, you get the impression that she would slaughter an entire village, but if she gave Jack a hug, she'd mean it. And that's a difficult performance to pull off. She dances around. You know, what is Jack? What is he really? She knows a lot. She knows way more than she's let on, which is why last week's cliffhanger was a bit frustrating, because she clearly has answers for him. She says, you know, I can help you. I can bring you to these answers. But before they can be given, Jack activates what turns out to be a shield, and Data opens the escape hatch of the Titan. Amanda Plummer delivers one of my favourite swear words I've ever heard in Star Trek. Solids. As she's blown out into space. No notes. Perfect. As she's flying through space and she's quickly turning to ice and she gets slammed against the Shrike and shatters. They T-1000'd her. They encased her in liquid nitrogen, and then you had effectively Data go, hasta la vista, baby, and she explodes. So in theory, if they got all of her bits back together again and stuck them somewhere warm, she could reassemble. But instead what they do, jumping forward a few seconds, is they fire a bunch of torpedoes, they destroy the Shrike, which destroys all of Vadic inside it. They full on T-1000 dropped her into the molten pit of steel. If this is the last we see of Vadic, which I'm not going to lie, it seems like it is, I just want to say what an amazing villain Amanda Plummer was this season in Star Trek Picard. I was just delighted by pretty much everything she did. Obviously, I waxed lyrical about her monologue last week. I thought she was great again this week. Seriously don't like that she killed Devine. Again, bold. But what a character. Amanda Plummer. That was brilliant. After that, it starts to come a little bit, quick and fast. We get some lovely shipborne of the Titan, which I'm always going to be happy about, and a beautiful exchange between Data and Geordi, where I see Data just says, I feel. Geordi, it's just great to see them together again, because they are, for Next Generation, they are the Bashir and O'Brien, they are the Harry and Paris. I mean, they're just, seeing them together again. And of course, the observation lounge scene. How long has it been since we saw everyone sitting around the observation lounge table together? Well, I can tell you, it's been about 30 years or so, 20, Nemesis. It's such a welcome return, seeing how they all react to Data as well, and also seeing everyone in those kick-ass uniforms. I want one of those jackets. They look amazing. But also, if you look at the way they're sitting around the table wearing their leather jackets and everything, anyone else get a real Sons of Anarchy feel about this? Like real kind of like biker jackets? Literally, all they need is their own MC patch in the back. They discuss what's to be done. Deanna is there quickly to say, yep, this is to do with Jack. This is 100% to do with Jack. I'm gonna have to go and meet him, use Betazoid and Counselor skills. It's great seeing everyone back together again. And I'm sorry, is that 1, 2, 3, 4 pips on Captain Worf's jacket? That was a nice quiet way of letting us all know he's a captain. So just real quick, okay, so we're going to go a combination of main canon and beta canon for a second. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, in the 6th season episode Change of Heart, Worf abandons a mission to save Jadzia Dax from certain death. Sisko tells him that will probably mean he will never get the command of his own ship. Okay, bummer. That leaves about 30 years between these two stories. We know that Worf went off to be Federation Ambassador to Kronos in the meantime. We also, from Picard, know that he sacked off that job and went and subcontracted for Starfleet Intelligence. Okay, these are all on television. If we look at Una McCormack's The Last Best Hope, we know that earning the respect of Starfleet back and with the recommendation of Admiral Picard, Worf is promoted to captain and given command of the Enterprise E. There's nothing said about the Enterprise E in this episode, but if we are to believe that book and make it part of canon, that's how Worf got his 4th pip. This is enormous. And the fact that he's captain, brilliant. So obviously that's an up, Captain Worf. And, sorry Sisko, but I'm glad you were wrong. I am very glad. Last thing for the episode, you've got Deanna sitting with Jack. They take hands. She joins him in his mind. He walks toward the red door. The episode ends down. Same cliffhanger 2 weeks in a row. We're about to find out who Jack is. Okay, no, we're not. We're about to find out who Jack is. Closing credits. Come on. We better get some answers next week. So, all right. With all that in mind, to citation observations, shall we? We have, in the opening scene, some original series and Kelvin bridge noises. We have a reference where Vadic says she could make the ship so cold it would snow, reference to the Naked Time and the Naked Now. Of course, the reuse of the word Imzadi. Troy says she'd love a Ractagino latte at one point, and we hear the Klingon theme when Worf returns. Now, nice deep cut. Geordi says, when they came to his anniversary on Rigel, if we go back to All Good Things, that's where Geordi is living with Brett, Alandra, and Sydney, and Leah Brahms. Now, in the whole exchange then between Data and Lore, we open with a bit of audio from the episode Elementary Dear Data, where Data is speaking to Geordi. Then we see Holmes's Dear Stalker cap. We see Holmes's pipe. Picard's body on the Shrike as well, so that's from the end of A in Arcadia Ego, Part 2. Jack enters the bridge with what looks like a Star Wars thermal detonator that we saw in Return of the Jedi. Data is seen holding a First Contact Insurrection tricorder. At one point, did you really think I was going to miss the fact that finally, for the first time since All Good Things, Denise Crosby's Tasha Yar appears on screen. That is an up. It is the same device that we've seen in the past that Data has as well. We saw it in Measure of a Man. Her pose is slightly different. She had her hands crossed in front of her in those, now they're by her sides. We tried to source the image, we assume it's from a costume fitting or something, but sorry, that's just the detail we tend to go into. So if we include Tasha Yar and everyone else in this episode, it's the first time since All Good Things that every one of that main crew were in the same episode together. Oh. Data's holding a pack of playing cards at one point, of course reference to all the many poker games. Take another up, Spot. Did anyone else feel it right there when Spot was on screen? Also, where did they find that clone of a cat? That was impressive. And Worf has his dolphin head phaser toward the end. Folks, that is everything for this week. What did you think? Let us know. As usual, thank you so much to everyone for watching, liking, sharing and subscribing. Massive thanks as well must go to the wonderful Chris, who not only edited this, but also we write these scripts together. You look after yourselves, folks. Now, you can catch us over on Twitter at Trek Culture and on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. Catch myself at Sean Ferrick on the various socials, and you can catch Chris at EditChrisEdit on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure that you live long and prosper. We have 2 weeks left to go with this show. I want, in the next 2 weeks, to hear what you are enjoying about the series and what you would love to see in another series itself. Remember, we as Trekkies, we have the power to get these things done. Let's get Star Trek Legacy going. Hey, we got Season 3 of the original series, for our sins, and we also got Strange New Worlds. We can do this again. Let's come together. Everyone, look after yourselves, be kind to yourselves, love yourselves and love everyone around you. Be kind to particularly your trans folks and family, because well, we know what difficult times are happening there at the moment. To our friends in Ukraine, please stay strong. Know that we support and love you. Everyone, have yourself a lovely few days until I see you again. Make it so.